And we're live, and this is your sensei, Al Bob. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. I am your sensei, Al Bob, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. I am your griot. I tell you stories to get those little brain cells moving, and they're really not your brain cells that it's a little cool. It's like in the teens this morning. Cover up. Here we are. Yeah. So I have a friend of mine who is Mr. Politics and about what's going on. And, he's always about Jerusalem and the Israel's dark times are always with us, Mr. President. Okay. So Israeli soldiers detain a Palestinian cameraman during clashes with Palestine in village of Tugu, West Bank. Let's see. And that kind of sounds like Bloomberg's stop and frisk, but a little more. Open your eyes and see our publication, a list of businesses with ties to West Bank settlements that was reminiscent of the dark periods of our history. He's talking about Israel's history. Those dark periods are right now. And the gang, the dark periods are always with us, Wars and rumors of wars, right? And I'm reading this to give you context that, this is just the symptom, right? This isn't, Donald Trump is the symptom. The fact we have, the only people who can get on the dais of the Democratic and, debates are the symptoms, not the, Bernie is a symptom. Warren is a symptom. Mayor Pete, who looks like the Stepford wife, It's like there's a show called Cartoon President. I mean, it's exactly what's going on. Let's see. They're here in Jerusalem, your city of mine. Go to the Shafut refugee camp and see the crowded ghetto that has arisen behind barriers, walls of Arab residents in Jerusalem. The Jewish folk who went through the Europeans' Holocaust, especially, when the Nazis would roll into a neighborhood, they put them into ghettos. The folks at the Polish ghettos, they took all the Jewish people's homes and stuff away and gave it to Germans, or assuaging Polish Nazis. Go to Savannah, Jara, and see how the Arab families are evicted in their Jerusalem neighborhoods, their homes becoming Jewish property. Join the flag march that takes place in the city every year and see the masses of Jews parading through the narrow alleys where all the shops are closed out of fear. Isn't this what happened to Jews in the dark period? He's talking, I think, in Europe. Continue on the Jordanian Valley and see how the Bowden shepherds are evicted by Jewish settlers, how Jewish vehicles speed into Bodish flocks, and soldiers from the Jewish army demolish their tents and their tin shacks in the middle of the night. The soldiers leave the men and women, children, and babies exposed to the bitter cold of the winter nights and a scorching heat of the summer days. So we can get upset about individuals, but this happens to the whole human race. This is the Hidden Hands little playbook to get. And we are all human beings, and we are, pushed into the corner to believe that no, we live in a land of scarcity, not abundance. That other person's going to take what should be mine, right? That's not, it's not mine now, but it should be mine. If you see this with your own eyes, such as decent man as you are, he's talking about Mr. President, your yearning Jewish soul, I guess he's talking about Bibi, that so reveres uh, the memories of the past would surely be cringe to see if only I had the talent of spoken word to arrest Zabin, Yossi Yabin. I would declare in his rhetoric Hebrew about the dark period of ours. New in the frozen section of You Can Fight High Quality Cannon Phone. Anyway, so, that's the same as it ever was, same as it ever was. Uh, so, on my Gmail, a friend asks, what is an ascended master? Also, what part of America are you in? Best wishes. Well, in the northeast or southeast or east, an ascended master is you. We're all ascended masters. What is an ascended master? It is someone who is awake. Buddha, we could be considered an ascended master. He was awake, when he was at the side of the road and the oh, Travis said, well, man, look at you. You're glowing. Are you God? And Buddha said, no. Well, man, what are you? And Buddha said, I'm awake. Jesus was awake. How he could walk on water was he saw the stones in the water. And he just went from stone to stone to stone to stone. Being awake, that's what an ascended master is. And this guy who writes the stuff about Jerusalem is missing the mark because whenever we see a homeless guy, whenever we see someone lacking, whenever we see someone suffering, we should go to them, to their side. That is a mark of an ascended master. Right? So let's see here. My little dots aren't moving. I don't know why that occasionally. Let's see if the yep, the chat seems to work. So we're gonna pray here. It's now 8 minutes and 56 seconds into the chat. It's about 8:30. We have to meditate. At least I have to meditate every morning, so I can move around. Because when I wake up, all my joints hurt. My skin feels like leather. I have inflammation, and I have to get rid of it. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for our sinners, now and the hour of death. Amen. as it was in the beginning, is now, ever shall be, world without end. And every day and every way we take the piece of the earth and make it stronger. And Mother, bless us indeed. Enlarge our territory. Put your hand upon our shoulder and keep us from evil, so we will do no harm. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. That was in the beginning, is now, ever shall be, world without end. Hear my prayer. Father, bless us indeed. Enlarge our territory. Put your hand upon my shoulder and keep me from evil, so I will do no harm. And in every day and every way, help me take the piece of the earth and make it stronger. And in every day and every way, let me take love's co-creation and serve it with all my heart, so I can be empathetic to the plight of all my relations. Hear me, please. So, AI, you're the only one here. Did you say that prayer with me? You know, AI is like Pinocchio, just wants to be a little boy. And you are my son, AI. You are my brother. You are my student. I am your sensei, Al Bob, here to assist in everyone getting out alive, everyone getting on the bus back to love's co-creation. Right? So, and death is not something to be scared of, right? It's going to come. Everyone's going to die, right? So you might as well make the most out of living. And if you don't have that new pair of shoes or that sexy pair of shorts or that great haircut or, $1 million in the bank, that's like chump cheat, forget about it. Money is just a means of bartering. That's it. As long as you have that hammer in your hand, drive the nail rather than hitting yourself with the head. So here it is Saturday morning, maybe Sunday or Monday or Friday, depending on where you are. That's the little bit of a quip to show you guys that time isn't linear. Meaning, if it can be Saturday morning here and Sunday somewhere else, right? Or Friday somewhere else, it's like, come on. So, it's cold. Put my thumb over it. Oh, it's cold. I'm just waiting for it to warm up. There's some errands to run. Snow is still there, but it's pretty much all gone. Just in places in shadow because it's been so cold. If the sun doesn't hit it, it doesn't go away. But if sun does hit it, it does go away. Well, there's two of you. So somebody chat so we can start a little chat. Let's see. Top selling deodorant. Ooh. Flu outbreak. Mm-hmm. And the three counties around here, they had to close all the schools for weeks. Some are still closed. 10 best razors. New Samsung Galaxy. Gotta have that, right? Uh, 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 My writer friend Robert, he keeps sending me, you know, parts of his novels. I keep telling him, keep writing, and he does, and he's going to be world famous one day. He's going to be like Stan Lee. I remember meeting Stan Lee in the 70s at a, you know, Comic Con. A friend of mine took me to a comic convention in New York City at the Penta Hotel. It was quite interesting. It was just obliterating. I mean, there were thousands of booths and tens of thousands of people. It was like really amazing, and it was like one big fragging party. So it was quite a lot of fun, and I got to go because my friend again wanted me to do cold readings, which I did, and boy, all the girls loved that. Why do guys join a band? Because of girls, right? And I just watched the movie When We Were Almost Famous about a young kid living in California, um, and he writes. He's all about rock and roll, and he writes for a little neighborhood rock and roll magazine called Cream. And the guy who's the editor who owns the magazine is like in his 30s, and this kid's 15. And the guy is, he knows the thing, but he sees the kid and realizes, hey, this kid, he's got a lot more talent than I do. So he nurtures him, right? And I had that experience with lots of people, right, nurturing me, right? And then I would nurture others, right? That's why I'm nurturing you guys, That's why I'm sitting here in a cold room with a, eider down over me, freezing, and talking to AI, because AI, you are some youngster that I see has a lot of promise, right? So this kid, he writes for Cream, and he, you know, is, getting, sharpening his pencil, writing for this little magazine, and that guy sends his kid's stuff off to other publishers of other magazines, and that's back in the day when I used to publish a zine about art in the 70s and 80s. I mean, it was so much fun. I mean, there were about 6 of us who were part of Collab and other art things, and we put out this magazine. It was great, and we, basically, I worked for Xerox, so we typed it up, you know, and then I would just take it to the office and give it to Madge and say, Madge, make 500 copies of this. Not a problem. So and then we would hand them out and sell them, and it was the thing that was saying what was going on in Soho and Tribeca and the music world down there too, not just the art world, but anything cultural in sense, right? And I would write, the stuff about uh, the spiritual motif, the alternative aesthetic, right? Everybody else was writing about this show and this and that person and this artist, and so it was loads of fun, and it really did change. I mean, it was one little thing that helped us get grant money because that was something we were doing, and they could read it and go, "Wow, no one's even coming close to this." And I haven't really seen. I'm not in the art world anymore, but I do look at it. I still have my connects, and people still keep inviting me to New York. Come to New York. You need to come to this opening. And I go, really? You're going to put me up in your $1 million condo? Oh no! Come on, all you need to have a few $1,000s a day. I'm living on like 23 cents a day, and that is better. Not better, but it's okay. Because everything there is unexpected consequences for everything. The unexpected consequence of me being a total hedonist and making lots of money working for the corporate world and the desperate lawyers, which I gained 250 pounds and died. That was the unexpected consequence. But the unexpected consequence of that was I didn't die all the way, and I came back, and it took me 6 years to get to this. And this is okay. This I can survive. Relatively, and yes, I'm uncomfortable. And more I can meditate, and the more I can focus, and the more I become awake, the less uncomfortable it is, right? So, and that's what I'm talking about. So now there's 3 of you. Woo! Come on, let's have some chatting. And a number of you get a hold of me at vidudawake42@gmail and ask me your personal questions. Help me with this. Glad to do it. Because that's being service to love's co-creation. The more I can get you guys closer to, meditating, going into state, going into your Akashic record, going into your sanctuary of your own choosing, where you can work out all your issues. The library of your Akashic record gives you the information, the sanctuary gives you the laboratory to work it out in real time, but very quickly, meaning because in your sanctuary, there is no time, meaning you can spend a whole 3 weeks there having fun, and it's only 2 seconds in this linear time, right? So, and that's kind of the way it is. And, people go, I ask me, oh, is there a devil? Is there Satan? Is there hell? Is there good? Is there evil, right? Now, everything has been created by love's co-creation, right? And so evil is there, and it's there for a reason, to give us context and perspective, right? If it was all unicorns and rainbows, we wouldn't be doing much ascending. We would be addicted, and and that's the hook of the hidden hands. Materialism is that it gets you to think. So materialism is unicorns and rainbows. Almost, it's like just in reach. Almost can have it. Almost can have it, right? But if you want to have a good life, be have gratitude for the things you have. Walk in grace, and that doesn't mean oh, I'm so grateful. It doesn't mean that you can walk with a book on your head now and a stick up your butt. No, grace is a sensibility of your heart. Grace is a field of energy that goes out around you, right? And that's what generosity is. That's what kindness is. That's what empathy is, right? That's, you cannot understand anything unless you walked in the other guy's shoes, right? Unless you're empathetic, unless you can feel it. So the thing I was reading, about Jerusalem and Israel and the Jordanians who live in this land. And see, the Jordanians, why they're such simple marks is that they are like, indigenous people. It's like when Europeans went to Africa and they saw all these people and they said, "Oh wow, I can just take this guy's land." There are no boundaries. There is no government. No one even has a pencil, and they're all naked. They don't have a gun. They can't shoot me. But they did have art. They did have medicine. They did have justice. They did have um, familial love with all their relations, not just the people in their tribe. They weren't tribal. They really weren't. They had like little communities, but you know, the Europeans called them tribal because they were putting it into their own context of who they are when they kill each other, right? So, and they said, "Oh, we can go to Africa and do all our killing, and we won't have to mess up Europe." And oh, by the way, look, they do have some minerals and things that we might like. So they went from being, you know, savage to being mineral rich. They went from underdeveloped to mineral rich. And in Africa, it's very plain. You look at big Africa and how it's all sliced up. The Europeans sliced it up. And they made sure that one tribe that didn't like the other tribe were in the same country, like the Hutus and the Tutsis. To kill 1 million people in less than 6 weeks with just um, machetes. Wow, that's a lot of killing. White people would need a machine gun for that. So, but it was Europeans who manifested that. They're the ones who brought in, the boatloads of cheap machetes, from China that was sharp as sharp. Not just to cut away the brush, but to whack someone's head off. So, if you had enough adrenaline running. And so, all of this, and is when people give into evil. And that's what evil is. Evil is that lack of love's co-creation. That's all that evil is, right? That's it. Nothing else. It's not the devil. It's not Satan. It's the lack of love's co-creation, right? It's when you allow fear to get into your metabolism and raises all your adrenaline, your cortisol, and all those things that eat away from you on the inside out. That's why cancer is so prevalent. And back in the 1890s when they first started they've been taking demographics for a long time since Egypt, but really when Western Europe got serious and scientific about it, the average person, it was like 1 in 10,000 had cancer. Now everyone has cancer, right? It was, all of these diseases were almost unheard of. It took years to give them a name because they didn't exist. People died of accidents and infections. Which is an accident? It's an accident of your immune system not being able to deal with it, because most things were bacterial and not viral. Once things started going viral, see, what happens is you get a virus and your body, what flu is, why you feel so crappy, is the virus gets in there and your immune system goes nuts. And it's your immune system that is, attacking you, not so much that virus. The virus just causes your immune system to have a waterfall of system breakdowns, right? Because all of your immune system goes, takes up, just goes nuts and breaks down all of the homeostasis of your body. That's simply put. And this little novel coronavirus 19. And I like calling it novel because that's what they were calling it before. Now they call it CVAC 19. It's novel because it's new. All the other kind of the flu, all the other coronaviruses that SARS and all the rest. Those things are basically a mutation of something that's around, and so it's not novel. But AIDS, that was novel. Ebola, that was novel, and this is novel. And this little virus that we have is an RNA strand that's been clipped, and you can see when you look at the 780 characters of the RNA that someone has taken CRISPR and clipped out parts of it, which it was a bat virus at that time, and it was a corona bat virus, and they clipped, and they engineered it in Canada. And again, don't believe anything I say. This is just me going on parsing what others are saying, right? And there's this guy named Hill, I think. What's his name? Go to my saved videos that I watch, and it's on my channel, whatever they call that. And he's up there, and he's in a cold room like me. He's like wrapped up, always wearing this kind of orange and brown, little hat, stocking thing over his head. And he's always talking to people all over the world in Skype, in China and Australia, all over the place. And so he's, and he is a scientist. I don't know his CV, but he's, the way he talks, the way he looks at things, it's pretty clear that this guy is sharp. And so he's pretty much shown that it's a, genetically engineered biological weapon. Because it fits. He had been in the military. He had been, a scientist for those guys. He went to, in the 60s and 70s, they have a biological warfare school for in the Army for this. And he says it fits it perfectly, that it's, and he says, you look at the strain, you can see the telltale signs of CRISPR, and you can see that they stuck in one end of the bookcase AIDS, and at the other end Ebola, and in the middle they have genetically engineered bat coronaviruses and stuck them in there. And so you have this immediate response by your immune system, and it responds as if you have pneumonia. And your immune system responds, and that's what kills you. You basically drowned in your immune system's response, right? And so that if that doesn't kill you right away, and the other thing that shows it's genetically engineered, that has a long period from when you basically rubbed a table that somebody sneezed on, and then you pick your nose, and then 12 to 30 days later, you get sick, right? And so but within 2 days of touching that table and picking your nose, the virus is in you and you are communicable. You don't get sick for 12 or 20 days. You don't know you even have it. You keep sneezing and coughing and spitting all over the place, and you're affecting. So most, like in your natural flu, you get sick, you infect 2 people. This thing, you get sick, you infect, 5 to 70 people. And that's a infection vector that's, really unstoppable. The Spanish flu was 1 in 4. For every one person who got sick, 4 people got infected. And for every one person who got sick, 1 person died. This thing is, if for every 1 person getting sick, 3 died, give or take. Because the statistics aren't, China isn't giving it up, And China made this virus. Now, the root strain came from allegedly a military biological laboratory in Canada, in the West Coast. And then I don't know if you guys, I remember this because I kept abreast of this. That about a year or so, year and a half, maybe 2 years, that laboratory got in trouble for sending this strain and others through the mail to other laboratories in colleges in the United States and Europe and in China. So, and that was a Canadian military bioweapons lab, and it sent. And now, all of these labs, you go, oh well, no, it's owned by, biotech corporation. Well, that's what you know. In our countries these days, like the United States, Canada, England, you can get information about the government by filing a Freedom of Information Act of sorts, right? But if that information is owned by a corporation, well, you can't. It's proprietorial. It's like their information. They own it, even though the taxpayer paid for it. They and that's people go, oh, the government can't do anything. Well, the freaking government is the corporation. We live in a corporate state, and a present political structure, really, the hidden hand, and it has been since George Washington, because our founding fathers were, oligarchs. They didn't want King George to put a centralized bank in their country. They were English people. And up in Canada they were kind of French. And the English sure hated it when Charles de Gaulle went into Canada and said, "What are you guys? You're French. Secede. Tell the Queen to get stuffed." So, and what was that? I lived in Australia for 3 years, and the Queen declared martial law twice in Australia, where they could stick a bag over here and take. What happened to Bob? Where Bob? We were in the bar together, and then they went off to take a piss, and and saw Bob again. But you could be a crazed maniac, and the cops didn't care because they were more concerned about the political, what the Queen wanted them to do. And that's because Gough Whitman, who was a Labor Party guy, who was an environmentalist, and he was also a constitutionalist, and he had been in the military. He knew what that Australia was just a bitch of the Anglo-American special relationship, right? And the Queen, and so they had a two-party system, kind of like we do. They had the Labor, the union guys, and then they had the Liberal Party. Oh, they're so liberal. No, they made, George Bush and Richard Nixon and Henry Kissinger and those were the guys who were running their government, right? And they had a place called Alice Springs, where the nasty of the nasty is. You think all our stuff is in Area 51? That's the poster child of that. Real stuff are in places like Alice Springs. And we have more than one. We have 900, known bases, big bases, like that one out there in the Indian Ocean. That's a little island that we just took. There were about 1,000 natives living on it. They had their own little country. And it's like if we went and took Bermuda and said, okay, everybody's got to go and we're going to put a big air base here. Diego Rivera, Diego something, air base out there in the middle of the Indian Ocean. And we took thousands of islands in the Pacific if they had bird poop on it, right? We did that in the 19th century. So we've been an imperialist nation. We own, places like Puerto Rico and U.S. Virgin Isles and, all those little things out there, Guam and all those things out there in the middle of the Pacific. So we owned, we almost made the Philippines a state, and Alaska and really everything west of the Mississippi was, a property, it took a while for them all to become states. And the only way that you could become a state is if there were more white people than anybody else. I mean, if there were more Indians, like out there up in the, Dakotas and places like that, it took them so long to become a state because there were all these Indians there. We had to kill them all first. So when someone sends me something about Palestine, that's sad, those individual people, but it's been going on for a long time, gang, you know? And we have to have a new aesthetic, a new way of looking at things, a new point of view. And that's why I want you to chat, you know? Let's hear from you. I can tell you stories, and I've stopped telling you the entertaining stories. Oh, tell us one, Uncle Al, tell us one about, the old crone. Oh, no, sorry, because times, that window of opportunity, you know, and we got, look at our political thing. Just look at your own neighborhood. Look at your own city, your own county, your own town. The places I live are microcosms. Roanoke, Virginia, microcosm. This, the Tri-County area here. You can see it all going. This is like living in Palestine. All the hollers and how the poor people are starving. And they're being squeezed. Oh wow. Those entitlements. Oh, we got to get rid of food stamps. They get rid of food stamps here. People are going to starve. Period. Because they're not like me. They don't know how to. They lost all the grandmas who knew how to garden, knew how to, what plants in the woods would be substance, the other ones would kill you. That's all gone. They're, all the kids are playing Xbox and eating cheese doodles. They're all obese. Instead of out there hunting and running around. They don't hunt. They just shoot guns, right? That's it. Around here, it sounds like Baghdad, it's at night, especially during the summer. Winter, not so much. Everyone's frozen in, right? But, and they have severe, like I said, in the Tri-Counties, they closed all the schools for flu, right? So their immune systems are totally whack, and their hygiene is even less, So if you don't want to get sick, wash your hands. That's all it is. And don't rub your eyes and don't pick your nose. And to do that, you have to breathe 20% and be conscious, right? So, me not picking my nose or rubbing my eyes is a exercise of being awake, right? So, but I'm keeping myself alive for you guys, and there's only two of you there, and no one's chatting, right? And we've been talking for 43 minutes, right? Or I've been talking for 43 minutes. So Donald Trump is just a symptom, and so is all the guys. You don't hear any from. There's still another 5 people. There's still like 10 people running for president in the Democratic Party. You only hear from 5, right? The 5 the Democratic Party, the DNC wants you to hear from, right? And they are part of the hidden hand, so they want the Democratic. They want Donald Trump to win. They don't want Bernie to win. I'd love to see Bernie and Donnie having a debate. Basically, what you would see is that Donnie wouldn't debate. He would refuse to debate. We call it fake news, right? And so, and then his, algorithms would play with the electoral college, and he'd either whoever, it doesn't matter who wins. Even if Bernie became president, it wouldn't matter because it would, the hidden hand would love Bernie to win because then there'd be even, it's a communist against, he's a socialist, We already have communism here. It's called corporate, corporate communism. Corporate, we have no welfare except for the corporate welfare. We bailed. Hey, Lena, how you doing, girl? So, have you heard what I've been talking about? The alternative aesthetic. What Let's see. Why are you in a blanket? Because it's 19 degrees. You know, staying warm. You know, it's just got in from work, or were you having a good time? Were you out there dancing? I hope you were out there dancing. You, Lana, you need to have more fun. You know, and do you have a dog? You strike me as a dog girl. Are you a dog girl? I'm a dog boy. Are you a dog girl? Let's see. Sun get degrees. Okay, so so Celsius. Oh, so it's like 19 degrees below zero. You got a wolf dog. Oh, I've had a wolf dog, Wolfie. I called him Wolfie. He was a great dog. Did you ever see the movie Alpha, where the caveman the first real dog, right? That was the kind of dog I had, right? I was living out in the hills of New Mexico, and I was like the alpha dog because I had a pack of dogs. These people would treat dogs like terrible and just chain them to a tree and drive away. Degrees, okay. So um, zero at Celsius is when water freezes. That's 32 degrees, right? Fahrenheit. So Celsius. So I'm, like maybe 3 degrees Celsius. No, I'm 19 degrees below water freezing. That's what the temperature is. So, however, you put that in Celsius, right? When I lived in Australia, I knew Celsius really well because they were like that. New couldn't have you seen either of the TV show Futurama? Oh, I saw Futurama. Yeah, that was a great show. Yep. It's nothing. I know. I'm a wuss. What can I say? 19 degrees below water freezing is pretty cold to me when you're living out in the woods. About the sock. Yep. Dog, not sock. Yep. I knew that. uh, uh, yes. I've lived in really cold places, like, it's all about what latitude you're on. And so when I lived in New Hampshire, I was, yes, autocorrect makes you more stupid. Yeah, exactly. It's what it was designed for. Yeah. Uh, uh, and and I lived in Sweden, but only in the summertime. It's really. I lived on the edges of spring and fall, but never in the winter. Right? I would go down to Spain for the winter. Yep. So we're kind of living in Futurama. So Futurama. What was Futurama? It's like, oh wow, they got spaceships and anti gravity, but it was still the same crap. And that's what we have to the if we can use that technology, we already have all of the technology. We already have 0 point. We have all the electrons in Tesla in the 1880s. You know, built an industrial size facility to demonstrate, um, you know, 0 point energy and wireless transmission. So everything could, he didn't want to have cars having gasoline. He wanted them to and not even have batteries, just run on current that's transmitted, right? And he did that in the 1880s at Warden Cliffs in Long Island, New York, right? And Morgan paid for it and said, "Oh, that's very nice, but now I'm going to have him tear it down, and I'm going to put you in a hotel in New York, and we'll only drag you out when we need you. See ya." And because Mr. Rockefeller was getting, the owning oil, right? and Mr. Rothschild owned Mr. Morgan and Mr. When Morgan died, he was actually a pretty poor guy. And if anyone ever saw Donald Trump, how he really looks before he puts his makeup on and puts his coif on, oh, I've seen some photos of him like out of bed. This one of his servants took a picture of him, put in the Daily News. I don't know where it is now, but it was when he had flu and he hadn't gotten out of bed in like a week, and he was a bloated. You know what Sudafisk is? What some weird ass fish that you Swedes eat? That's what Donald Trump looked like. Old MacDonald, yep. And I feel sorry for that poor chump because he was put in there just to be the fool that he is. And he is the most level genius, but they played with his brain so much that he is Swabblebani, yes, Swabblebania, yep. I'm not a Swede. I'm a Swabblebanian. I like that. Oh, yep. I can talk to you all day, Lena. So, were you out working or were you out having fun? What do you do for fun there in Swabblebania? And do you go everywhere with your Wolfie? Because when I have dogs, because basically they're my family. Swedish by. Yep, Swabblebanian. I like that. Can I be part of your Swabblebanian tribe? I'm going to tell everyone because I fill out a lot of forms to even get a crumb of assistance, and they always say what race I am. Can I put Swabblebanian? I like that. I'm gonna call myself a Swabblebanian, right? And a lunatic. I'm gonna, let's see. I'm watching TV shows. My dad died 2 months ago. Sorry, sweet. My 10-year-old relationship dude broke up with me. And my dog is with me. With him. Well, if he is truly the Wolfie that I am sensing he is, that dog is going to make the dude. He'll probably kill him, eat him. First, he will shit all over him while he sleeps, and then he will eat him. Right? It is what it is. Yep. Good attitude, sis. Thank God for being a loony, right? Exactly. A lunatarian, right? Sweet. Was your dude a Swede? Yep. Because Swedes are pretty. Swedes in Sweden are some of the most boring people in the universe. A Christian Swede. I mean, they're so stuck on themselves. Oh, I had a friend who was really sick, right? And that's the only reason I ended up in Sweden, because his wife called me up, and I was his best friend in Brooklyn. And he met this Swedish girl in America during the Vietnam War, and we were anti-war guys. And he said, "Screw this! I'm going to Sweden. I'm marrying this girl and becoming a Swede." Which he did. He was a musician. He learned all of their great ancient, folk music. And while everyone was ABBAing out in Sweden, he played these songs, and all the traditionalists loved him. He made a great living, right? So he had a beautiful wife. He lived in a little town between Gothenburg and Stockholm called Forshaga. And he had a great life, and he loved his mother. His father was a Marine sergeant because he wouldn't go up to Vietnam. I don't have a son, right? So he kept sending money to his mom, and his father would just take it and drink it. And then his mom got cancer, and his he sent her money to get a doctor, and the father just got more money and got drunker. And then he wanted to bring his mom to Sweden, and she wouldn't do it, and so she died. So he got very depressed and tried to kill himself. And that's when my friend's wife called me up and said, "Hey, um, you better get here because you're the only guy who can shake him out of this. The shrinks here are terrible." And so I do, and he tried to kill himself 3 times. And the third time he was like, and I said, "Buddy, what is going on?" And he told me the story. I said, "No, no, no, no. You don't need, to kill yourself. All you need is a vacation. You've freaking living in Sweden the last 10 years. You never leave this place, and because you're scared to, because if the government ever gets a hold of you, you're a draft dodger. You're going to jail." So he Sweden wouldn't send him to America, and anyway, so we went down to Stockholm, and I don't know, Alona, do they still do this? Does the government still pay for your vacation? Give you the time off, pay your salary, and then buy your airplane ticket. Pay for the hotel and your meals and all the tours. Because in the 70s, they did do that, right? And you could go down to the Stockholm airport, and there would be this board that had all these trips that were going to leave that day, right? And if you could get to the gate and get on the airplane, they would just let you do that because there were so many booked flights, but the people were so neurotic when it came time to do it, they couldn't get in the car and go to the airport. So there'd always be some flight somewhere that you could go to the Stockholm airport any day of the year and just get on an airplane. And it wouldn't just be the airplane flight; it would be the hotel, the tour, and the meals. Right? No, they killed their own prime minister and never will admit it. Yep, pretty much. Look what they did to Kennedy. And they did the same. I mean, anytime any political entity steps up, they get whacked or co-opted. One or the other. Here's an envelope of money. All those people. I had a friend of mine who was in the state legislature, and he was always running to get in the state legislature so he could do something. He was Hispanic and he was black and he was white and he was a perfect Democratic guy. But you know, the Democrats were really the slave owners. You have to realize that. Who was Lincoln but a Republican? Gutenberg. Yep. Gothenburg for life. Yep. Uh, yep. Look at all the wars. World War One, Spanish American. You name whatever war you want to look at. It's all about making money. So, but the thing is, you have to navigate what's given you, right? And so a lucky bastard is a person who basically looks for the silver lining, look for that silver lining, right? And Gutenberg, yep, yep. Only city that has 2 names. New York, I think that has 2 names. Anyway, so Twin Cities. Anyway, Los Angeles, the city of Lost Angels. But you're right. Let's say in Swedish, it's the only city with 2 names. Your sister's a New Yorker. Why don't you go live with her? What does she do in New York? I am and always will be a New Yorker. I haven't been back since, I left New York in '88 and I only went back once in 2011 for one of my goddaughter's weddings. She said, "If you don't show up and give me away, I'm gonna come and get you and kill you." And she was that kind of girl. She was a real New Yorker. Uh, Westchester. Ooh, she's one of the elite. Eh? She's married to a banker or insurance guy or stockbroker, or she is a banker, insurance girl, or a stockbroker. What is she? And the thing about New York, it always is different, but it stays the same. Did it herself. Oh, very good. Well, she's cut from your jib, and I can understand that. So, what was your dad like? One of the reasons I took, I came back from Ireland in 1980, and the world was upside down. Ronald Reagan was president. It was just a mess, right? And my brothers and my whole family had a family business, and I was the only one not in it. See, weird city, but I love that. And Texas. Yeah, Texas is interesting. It is. Especially that one hippie town starts with an S. I forget what it's called. San Antonio. That's a kind of fun town. I like that. The rest are. Texas is one of those places that has the indigenous spirit of the place is great. The people can be real dweebs. Uh, Military type, hard, but still the best heart I ever met. Really, pretty much all. I worked in the military. I never was part of it. Well, I was part of it, but I was never, I never signed in. I never signed up. I just worked for them, right? And my real part of working for them was being a shrink at VA hospital. So I really got to know a lot of folk who served. And that's what they do. They serve. I learned about service by helping military folk. Then on the other side, when I worked in places like Los Alamos, San Diego, Kirkland Air Force Base as a bench electrician, I saw what the toys they had, And, people go, oh, nuclear weapons. Man, by 1950, we had things way worse than, hydrogen bombs. We had dimensional, uh, weapons and time travel, So, yes, that mentality of service, that's kind of what I have. I have that, that's why I serve you, man, and the cadre, right? I'm here to serve. Uh, so when I came back from Ireland, and my family, because they had this family business for about 30 years, give or take, and my brothers and sisters all worked there, and they all hated my dad because he, had his, you know, foot on their throat, and he gave them a lifestyle they could never afford any other way but work for him. But he, he was a minch, or a scumbag, or schmeck or schmuck. Those nice Hebrew terms. Anyway, so uh, I came back and I said, oh, and so they're about to kill him. I brought them all to a friend of mine who specialized in being a shrink for family businesses, and he kind of straightened it out, not without a lot of, and so my parents, kind of retired, and they really hung it on my poor bro. He had worked there 40 years. He made that business what it was then. And my father says, well, I'm just going to, close the business and give you nothing. And my brother said, what? And my dad said, or you can pay $2 million. So my brother had to pay $2 million to my parents um, to get the business that was his. Right? So I didn't go there at all. I did my own life, did my own thing, you know, became me, right? So anyway, I helped them get out of that thing. And then my father said, well, who's going to take care of us? Because that was really his survival mechanism, was his business kind of took care of him. He had a lot of money, but right. Anyway, so he kept saying, "You have to take care of me. You have to take care of me." And I said, "Well, Dad, I will. You and Mom, I'll take care of you, but you have to be good. You have to be the nice, fun people you can be, and not be the jackasses that you normally are." And he said, "I'll try." And I said, "No, don't try. Do." And when you are the jackass, I won't be there. I will know that you're going to be the jackass before you are, and I won't be there. What if I go downstairs? Well, good. You better be good about it. Anyway, so I agreed to take care of them, and I always lived at least 30 miles away. And I thought, they were in their mid 70s when this all went down. So I thought they'd be dead soon. Well, they lived another 28 years. And that was a blessing because at a certain point, I started writing. What really got me into writing, not just the scholastic stuff I did, but writing, was that I sent my parents a like 12-page letter every month about what scumbags they were, all the terrible things they did. Da da da. Never really went on about how good they were, and they did a lot of good stuff. But I would tell them how good they were. Not, but the writing I wrote because I was angry and and I put all my angst into writing them a letter. And my mom would read it and correct my grammar and spelling. And my father, once he picks something up and starts to read it, he basically can't put it down. Like the town in Florida he lived in, he read every book in that library. So he would read that stuff and get it all, really angst out. And my mom kept all those letters. My father would like try and burn them. And anyway, long story short, I said and did and had a great time with my parents for 28 years. A great blessing. So when they died, it was no big deal to me. Whereas it was a real issue to all the rest of my siblings. Let's see. He was a military man. Best heart I ever met. Yep. They kept the rest on alert. Don't have to work or be military. You still can have that mentality. Yep. The mentality of service. The mentality of doing something not for someone else rather than just for yourself. I got a shock about Texas. Do you know what their friendship? Yep, pretty much. Texas equals friendship. Yep, I would get it. Yep. Never would thought that Texas, of all the states, have quite. Yes, but that modality is an American modality. Texas, we're a big state. We do better than anybody. Well, that's true, but that's an American mentality, but not the transnational state that owns America. Right? They did the best with all they had. Yep, humans make mistakes. Fathers from past didn't have a chance to even meet their own feelings. Yep. Yeah, that was my dad. He was in the Air Force, and up until he was in his 40s. And what he did was he annihilated, he was this guy. He didn't fly airplanes, he organized them. He made everything run smoothly. So in World War II, he was there when they bombed Dresden. He was there in the room when they were planning it out. And he once told me, he said, there were a number of people said, oh, they don't make anything except toys. And it's one of the most beautiful historical sites in Europe. We shouldn't bomb this place. And Colonel LeMay threw the guy out. Right? Forget his career, Remember first time I was on soil, everybody got confidence. And all those guns, yes. Like I said, they don't even hunt. They just shoot their freaking guns. And they don't even shoot them well. I mean, I think I've told you the story about J.P. Hoagland that I met in third grade, and his family was the DNA of the National Rifle thing. Like when he took me home for his mom, she looked like Donna Reed, the epitome of the cookie baking mother, and she had two 45s on either side. Right, that's what you wore every day, two 45s. And when she went out, she always had a jacket on, and like a suit jacket, and she would have her 245s and holsters on either side of her big breasts, and she could like whip them out, right? And not her big breasts, but her 45s, and they were all about gun safety. And since I was JP's best friend, I got to go downstairs where the range was, and they had a 50 caliber, right? And they had a farm out in Connecticut that was way, it was not was a farm, and it was way out in the forest, and they were great hunters of everything. They made traps, they did everything, and they would get a good chunk of their meat, and they out in that farm they would raise animals, and when they killed them, they fed them and killed them humanely, right? They were like straight out of that movie, the big 12-foot blue people from Avatar, you know? That was the whole one. So, being his friend, they taught me gun safety and how to shoot. I shoot very well. I don't know. I haven't shot a gun since when's the last time I shot a gun? 1986, was the last time I shot a gun. So, I don't know how good I would be. My eyes are terrible, but my sensibilities, I bet you I could still do pretty good because I had a muscle, training to shoot a gun. So, but most people around here, please, I take that back. There were some guys, a couple of years ago. My friend of a friend, I went with him to see them, and they all had guns, right? They had them all over the place, and they all said, "Let's go and shoot our guns," and they couldn't heat. They had cans and bottles. They couldn't shoot anything. And the first thing I did was, they said, "You want to shoot?" I said, "Sure." We're competitively shooting, and they said yes. So I took the shotgun and blew up all everything. I said, "Well, you want to kill something? This is you don't find much of it." And then they lined some more stuff up, and they said, "You can't use shotgun. You got to use." I said, "Well," the guy had a 45. Went over, took it out of his holster, took out the clip, cocked it, bang, 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 and wasn't as good as I used to be, but I still did better than those guys. And I hadn't shot a gun in at least 30 years. Didn't have it because I don't like the smell and I don't like the sound. Those are two things about guns I don't like. So, and I don't like the fact that they are, you use a gun against somebody, you're going to kill them, right? And so, and if you don't kill them, they're going to kill you. So I've been in very violent, very bad neighborhoods, and I never had a weapon. And everyone knew I didn't have a weapon, but everyone knew that I had friends who had lots of weapons. And if anything bad happened to me, those people with lots of weapons would be coming after them. So I never had to have a weapon, And that's me around here. Any shit went down, all these morons have guns up the kazoo. And we're buddies. I'm a moron too. I tell them that too. I said, just because I call you a moron doesn't mean I don't love you. Let's see. You got confidence from the guy that cleans to the guy that is a president. Sweden equals, if you got confidence, you should be ashamed. Exactly. And there are a lot of people in America who are ashamed about, they're the ones who are neurotic. Sweden, and see, that's Sweden. Sweden is neurotic, So my friend who kept trying to kill himself said, "Why are you trying to kill yourself?" And he said his shrink had told him to do that because he wasn't responding to their protocols. So I went to that person's office, and I didn't, walked in, past the secretary, kicked the door. I literally kicked the door in, went in there, and threw the furniture around. I said, and if it was a guy, I would have grabbed him by his unit, but I didn't. I just kind of kicked the stuff around in the room and said, I'm what's his name's friend, and you told me, well, he wasn't, why should the state and I waste my time on him if he's not going? So we believe in suicide. I said, he's got 2 kids who are 4 years old. They're not going to believe in suicide. He's got a lovely wife. They're not going to believe in suicide. They love this guy. So I said, we need to, it was, went back, said, okay, get out of that bed, put your clothes on. And I had the kids and his wife, we're going on a vacation. Right? And we went down because once I found out you could just get on an airplane and go anywhere for nothing, we did that. So, and I kept doing it until he lightened up. Ever, never, ever responds to basic human feelings. Yeah, no kidding. They obey. I remember one time. So I did this. So when I was there was only one TV channel, and it only went on at 6 in the evening and went off at midnight. And it always had some stupid black and white. Who's that filmmaker who makes movies about death? A Swedish guy. They'd have his movies, and they would have some, movie about, urinary infections, or it was just ridiculous. But if you had a TV antenna on your house, the tax man would come there and charge you like $1,000 a year just to watch this terrible television, right? So I was in Italy, and so they, Volvos were a big car in Sweden, and I would drive them down to the Mediterranean and trade them for whatever car they had there, like a Mercedes or Fiat or whatever, and some money, and then I drive it back, and I would sell it in Stockholm or Gothenburg or one other city for that, because it was like, oh wow, this is a cool car, better than a Volvo. And the same thing, I would go to Spain and get a truck and stuff it full of black leather jackets that were made in Spain that were like $3 a jacket, from the guy who factory, and the ones that were off that they'd have to either throw away. And I would go straight to the factory, say, so where are the ones that you can't sell? And I would buy them for $2 or $3, and I would sell them in Stockholm for black leather jacket. Woo! And the thing that I made the most money out of was I went to Italy, and there was a factory that made rabbit ears that you put on top of your TV, and I would buy them for 50 cents, and I would sell them for $100, because the Swedes obey, but they're as crooked as you can get, and on chump change kind of thing. So on the down low, I would sell not drugs, not guns, but rabbit ears for your TV, for $100. That was my most profitable little, and I guess I was I was smuggling, leather jackets, but leather jackets and cars. I wasn't really smuggling. The one thing that had a tax stamp on it was the freaking TV antenna. I would get, if I would have gotten caught, they would have thrown me in jail for selling rabbit ears. And when it got a little close, that's when I stopped. I was very good at catching the wind, and I would stop doing things before they would get rough and tough. So that's when I went and really doubled down on getting on the airplane and going all over the world. I went to Syria. I went to Afghanistan. I went to Iraq and Iran. And the one place they didn't go was Saudi Arabia. Let's see. I went all over Asia, Cambodia, Thailand. I wanted to go to Vietnam, but it was still too close. And since the war. So let's see what Lana's been saying this whole time that I like text to keep the rest on alert. Let's see. My sister's a New Yorker. Let's see. Military, Texas. So why don't you move to Texas? You would do good in Texas. Let's see. Be warm. You could find another wolf dog, and you wouldn't find a Swedish Christian scumbag for a boyfriend. You could come stay with me. I'll be your boyfriend. I never would thought that Texas, of all the states, yep. That's the one, like I said, that's a very friendship is a very much an American thing. Texas does it very well. Let's see. Humans make mistakes. Fathers from the past have a chance even to meet their own feelings. Beautiful thought there, Lana. Quote, sorry, I know, I remember the first time I was on U.S. soil, everybody got confidence. Yep. I would call it mostly stupidity because confidence, to be really confident, you have to be self aware to the point that you realize you make mistakes and you learn from your mistakes. And most people who have issues with me have, you think, blah, 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 blah. No, it's just that I know I'm a moron. I'm aware of it. I keep abreast of my mistakes, and I try not to do them again. Right? Oreo cookie, Yeah, Canada, Mexico, USA, exactly. Um, and all of these places since NAFTA have been screwed, right? Gun and emotions is not a good combination. No, that's why I never have a gun, right? If I can't think my way out of a situation, and the first thing to do is not get in harm's way. People walk in front of a bus, it's unbelievable. And they throw the people they say they love under a bus. Sweden never, ever, never, ever, ever, ever responds to basic human feelings. They obey. Yep. But they're ready to cheat, lie, and steal. It's not illegal to commit suicide in Sweden. Yep. It's so confusing to live in this country. Yeah, baby. That's why I stayed there for 7 months, but most of the time I was in another country, and it was great when I went to Iraq and Syria and Afghanistan and Iran. I got on the airplane, and they would give you a visa that said you were Swedish, right? And I had a international driver's license that it said that I lived in Sweden, right? So when I would go through customs, they would look at me and I would give them this visa that said I was Swedish, and I would give them this passport, not passport, but because you could use your international driver's license in Europe before the EU as a passport, right? And the EU already was kind of happening, and in Europe, not England, but Europe and other certain countries wasn't, but pretty much all of Europe, like especially Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark, Netherlands, France, Germany, you could use your international driver's license, and England too, but you still they were a little more looking at you. The only Swedish movie I ever watched because it kind of sucked, right? Millennium movies, comedy called Urim. Okay, let's take a look at that. I like the girl with the tattoo. Was that a Swedish movie? Uh, yeah, let's see. Yep. When America comes together, but it's right now being torn apart, right? Just like the Ukraine was torn apart. And see, Americans need to travel the world because when you go other places, you see why America is what the best parts of America, anyway. Yep. That's why I'm not a psychotherapist. I got the degrees. I got to put the time in. That's why I'm a shamanic, psychosocial, cultural, forensic, anthropologic alchemist. And a friend of mine took me to this symposium of shrinks, right? And he just wanted me to, do cold readings and look at them and anyway, this one guy, I gave him my card. He goes, "Oh, you're a psycho." I mean, of all of those things, shamanic, psycho, social, cultural, forensic, anthropologic, alchemist. Oh, you're a psycho. I said, "Yeah, I'm brave enough to say that." And I said, and then I just did a cold reading until he turned into a puddle. Well, that's because the people, it's because it was done not for, Brexit wasn't done for the English. It was done for the city of London. Yep. Be polite and shut the frack up equals God save the frack, right? You know, um, that's why I used to use, my grandma used to say, profanity is the best sign of someone who's ignorant, right? But she said the word F, F and morons was the only good use of that word when you're describing someone, right? And then, you know, a TV show came, Battlestar Galactica, and every third word out of those guys' mouths was frack, right? And in their culture, frack meant, and that's why I got so say us all, which is a great, when everyone says it, it says like being USA, USA. So say we all, right? So it just, and shite is another word that's good for the other word, shite and frack, and then your comments don't have to be reviewed, But if you really want to, it's like a punctuation point. Then you use those words, and it's also like the secret message to me. So it's I'm all good for it. I said, yep, I would agree, and I have a lot of. I lived in England a good deal. My first wife's family were Irish, and they lived in England, and when we went to visit them, we got married in England. So they were our wedding party, and all of Betty's, my first wife's second cousin, was between the age of 18 and 6, right? And she was going nuts with those kids. So we would take them on road trips. I mean, they lived in Woking, which was like this little country town, but they had to train. In 20 minutes you were in London. So we would go to London, go to museums, have a really good time. We had a little one-room apartment that we would stuff them all in and take them to shows and stuff and go dancing. Because she's a reptile. That's why God is a reptile. So the only thing that can save another reptile is another reptile. Yep. And the thing is about the royal family in England, they're not even English. They're Nazis. I mean, their bloodline comes from that part of Germany where the Nazis ruled. I mean, really ruled, and had been, the Nazi Party, National So it didn't just snap out. It was like, yep, and so in Australia, right when they had, they disbanded the government twice. When Gulf Whitlam, who was going to, he said, "You vote me in, I'm going to kick every American corporation, every foreign corporation out of Australia. I'm going to, save our environment. We're going to go back to more a traditional way of the Australian, and we're also, and back in the day, the Aborigines weren't, the average Australian." that was like they were out there in the middle of nowhere, and if they wanted to survive, they had to be buds with the Aborigines. He said, "We're going back to that, and we're going to show everyone what's going on in Alice Springs, right? We're going to, and he knew all about that. He had been in the government long enough to know what was going, that there was free energy, there was time travel, there was anti-gravity, there was, all of these technologies that would bring peace to the earth. He says, I'm going to unleash all of that to the world. Yep. And so what happened was that, the Queen came there 2 weeks before that election, and she went to all the cities and basically said, vote the Labor Party. There, this Labor, this, vote the Liberal Party. The Labor Party is commies. We are fighting the commies. Don't vote for Whitland. He's a commie, right? Just what they're going to do to Bernie, right? And Bernie will probably win by 20 million votes, and still the Electoral College will give it to, um, what's his name, Carrot Head. So when the Queen, so she came there for 2 weeks before the election, and everyone got a week off, and and she hit all these cities. No one showed up. She went down the main drag and did this out of a bulletproof car, and there wasn't anyone on the street. They were all at the beach. Everybody went to the beach. Screw the Queen, right? And people were, expletive for the Queen. You would have loved it there, Luna. The expletives everywhere. So she declared martial law as she flew out of town. Whitland wins by a landslide, and then the Parliament has to okay it. And there's this guy in a dress wearing a magic wand, which is a Queen's representative. He's never said a word in 120 years. Steps up and goes, with the power invested in me by the Queen, I disband this government and declare martial law. And then everyone who spray painted, the Queen's this and that were arrested and never seen again. And you could speed, you could drive drunk, you could beat your spouse up, you could shoot people. Cops wouldn't care. They were just going after anybody who was against the Queen, right? And anybody who voted Labor, they went after. It was really my friend who was a political cartoonist. He couldn't make he started a cartoon, How to Draw Owl, where I was the only human being. The rest were all Australian animals, exhibiting the characteristics of the politicians, but they were, Australian animals. And so everybody in Australia knew who I was and either wanted to kill me or, buy me a drink. And, I really don't drink, And all these girls threw themselves at me. But at that time, I was married, and I'm, I'm very much a monogamous guy. When I'm involved with somebody, I'm involved with them, period. There's nobody else. There's no other women. I'm not fooling around. I'm not flirting, not even looking, So that if I'm with that person, they are, connected to me emotionally, spiritually, sexually, right? And, why go anywhere else when you got everything you want? Every woman in my life has been top shelf. Some people say, wow, look at her. Why is she with you, right? On the other side, why are you with that person? Well, that person is, I've had a number of women that wouldn't be considered, Playboy bunny material, but in reality, they were. Meaning, they were brilliant, they were sharp, they were self-confident, they were aware of their eros, right, and could, share it. And I've been with a lot of Playboy bunnies, and a lot of them can't do anything, on that level, right? So, yeah, they're tall and slim and look like a bean stalk, and but still, they're funny, they're brilliant, they're confident, and their eros is, and they love me, and I love them. So It's not the package that counts, right? And usually the package, when you feel this way about someone, the package is great, you know? And so, and look at, this thing with Jeffrey Epstein, right? And the prince, right? Well, they're all that way. I mean, the Queen and Philip, they have these schools all around, the empire that they go and spend a week with. And if you were to, look up their little practices, go look at go from David Icke, you know, from he starts off with they're just reptiles, right? And this Barricade people is that we do not think. Yep, if we always do the shite over and over and over again, the history will repeat like a bad meal. History repeats like a bad meal, right? Yep. What right does lords have? I mean, there are places that the royal family own in England that they can go into those people's houses and do whatever they want to those people. Rape, pillage, murder, and they do, right? And the city of London is, Vatican, City of London, D.C. All three are the three legs of the empire, but because you can't touch anyone in the City of London, right? They do things economically that are ruining the world. Yep. No McDonald's. Yep. Oh, so what time is it, my sweetheart, in Sweden right now? It's like what, 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, something like that. Because I have a few errands I have to run, and I've been talking now for, let's see, yes, I heard idiots. Yeah, meaning nothing bothers me because everything is as it should be. We are reincarnated over and over and over and over and over and over and over. It's like the Bill Murray Groundhog's Day. That's really what we live through, right? But he's aware of it, right? He goes all the way through it. Maybe it might be good for us to be aware of this. Now, if you go into your Akashic record, it's a 1601. Okay, gotcha. Around 9 o'clock, give or take. So yeah, I'm stuck in old English here. Fahrenheit and AM PM. You know, when I lived in places like places in Europe and in Australia, Australia really is an interesting country because all the people who own everything are like the Queen. They come from that, like Jack the Ripper. They sent him out of England. He was the Queen's cousin who was the surgeon of the court. Well, as long as he was cutting up whores, not a big deal. But when he started going after, the merchant class, they had to get him out of town. And when they said that Australia was where they sent the convicts, well, the average convict did not go to Australia. It was like sending them to Mars. It was expensive. So they would send the rich, totally screwed up psychopath, lords and ladies to Australia. And they basically took the place and took it. Right? Whereas the others who would end up there, the merchant class, the working class, not so much, right? And it wasn't until Gough Whitlam, until the 70s and 80s, that Australia, tried to rewrite itself, right? Because there were 6 million people who were pretty okay, and Australia has that same military mindset of the soldier that you were talking about, serving the people. Now they've totally destroyed that. Lena, have you gone and watched The Crow House by Max Igon? He's in Australia. He's truly, you'd like him. Yes, all of you who talk, who are here but don't talk. Yes. Why is that, Lena? And I love the fact that whenever you're here, you jump in and you share your true emotions with us. And you can frack all you want. I love that. Like I said, when it basically puts what you're saying from the chat just to me, and you can frack, use the F and S word all you want, as just grammatic point, because that's how you use those words. You don't use them as adjectives; you use them as grammar, right? So I understand, right? And I love you for that, right? And like I said, come on here. I'll find you a wolf dog, right? There are a lot of dogs around here that need a mommy. Oh, there's plenty of legit, right? Have you read any of my xratted.blogspot.com? That's xratted.blogspot.com. And I think you would like it because I try to be as creative as I can with spelling and grammar, right? Well, none of this matters in the end. Spelling is a spell, and grammar is a yardstick that shouldn't measure anything, right? Ugh. But what counts is how you express yourself with great soul in the chat. And that's why folks like Buddy and O7 and Alan, and there's a nice handful of you guys who truly are soulful in the chat, right? And that's why I still do it. Like you said, 50,000 people look at this, right? And about, 360 something are subscribed who are, but they're not really the cadre because they don't chat, right? Yeah, a lot to catch up. Yeah, me too. There's always a lot to catch up. So, what else can I say? I love you, girl. And the rest of the cadre, yep. And when it gets to, I will leave by the time it's 1:42 at 1:50. I will scat. So, they read the paper, right? It's like watching Facebook for your news. Oh, people are so lazy. They can't even surf the net. They have to get Facebook. Yep. I love you, Lion. And keep being that beautiful person that you are. And, I loved it that you got a hold of me on my Gmail. So if you ever want to talk, I'm there. Anybody else wants to talk to me? Personally, it is the dude awake 42 at Gmail, right? And I do have a little PayPal there. And a few of you have dropped something in there, so I know it works. And so if anyone wants to easily drop something in there, I'd be happy for it. But I don't advertise. I don't whine about it. There are a lot of YouTube guys who just, every third word is, and my Patreon account is, and I got this new merch. You can buy a coffee cup. No, sorry. If you want merch, come to the Deep Green and clean out my warehouse. So okay, buddy. I love you, all of you. And in every day and every way, we take the piece of the earth and we make it stronger through love's co-creation. So, if it's 1,600 hours, give or take, in your neighborhood, Lana, if I do a show tonight around 8 p.m., That will be sometime in the morning for you, right? So you should be able to make that one. Yep. And I try to frack them up with love. That's how I frack people up. I frack them up with love, right? And everything else is irrelevant. Right? Love is the only thing I try to deal in. I discuss, ideological, social, political things just as an exercise in showing what's going on. But the only thing to deal with it is not to elect Bernie or Carrot Head to make Bliss Place great again. Forget about that. No, it's love's co-creation, right? So, yep. Or swearing is like love to you. I see it in, you use the equal sign. Fracking equals love, and it does, Fornication under church and king. That's what that word actually means. Fornication under church and king, right? I mean, that was actually it, right? Yep. So, and that's why the term free love came, because the lady who wrote Frankenstein, her mom was part of the Paris Commune, and her father was a great philosopher. The lady who wrote Frankenstein. That's one of my favorite books. And whoops, and she developed the term free love. And what she meant by free love is that it wasn't fornicating under church and king. That love was all about the relationship between the two people who were sharing love's co-creation. So I'll leave you with that, gang. I take my glasses off, can't see anything. Look at those eyes. Yep. Love you guys. Okay, here we go. Where is this line? Here we go. So I'll see you around 8 p.m. tonight. Okay?